Welcome to our continuing series, Interviews with Aurovillians. And today we have the honor of having B back with us. Namaste.
Namaste, Nara.
Welcome,
Thank you.
welcome.
Thank you. It's so great to go and have these conversations because so much has happened,
Yes.
and we were so lucky to be together there.
Yes, and we have to honor people in many ways too. We have to honor those early pioneers who came and those who came later with the same aspiration and vision and hope.
Exactly.
And so many. Now you are.
And the ones who saved us, I just remembered, when I was there in the nursery, you may remember Soleil, who now lives in Oregon.
I
Soleil
do
was
remember her.
yeah, she was a teenager in the ashram,
Yes.
and I had hepatitis, and I was just lying there on my bed, and she came out one day from the ashram on her bicycle, and she said, I've got to get some fresh vegetables for you, you're in bad shape. And so she went back to Pandi, and every day she brought me these fresh vegetables, and it saved me.
Yeah.
And of course Constance was there too, and Constance, once he found me there and he said, look, we got to clean this place up, and he took me out on the bed because I was so weak, I couldn't do a thing.
Yeah.
And then he got a couple of helpers and they cleaned the whole room, and then he brought me a bun from the bakery every day, one bun, So, we had our close calls.
Yes, I had it. Mary
Yeah.
Ellen had hepatitis also.
Yeah.
We both had it.
And
Pretty serious.
the one who had it was John, who had it so bad. But we talked about John already,
Yes, we
his
did,
story,
yeah.
where he got all his French blood from
Yes.
the aspiration women.
Right.
But these things are amazing. And I remember one of our great conversations, we were talking about history and William Irwin Thompson. And he had written that book, I think it was called The Edge of History. And but he had written some other things, and I think you had some contact with him, or you read one of his articles in which he said something like, well, Sri Aurobindo was a great spiritual philosopher and all this, but he tried to write poetry, and that was a mistake. And he said he wrote this Salvatori, but spiritual people, that's one thing. But literature and poetry is something else. And Sri Aurobindo sort of veered out of his confidence when he wrote Salvatori. And we were so horrified by that. But you took action, and if I remember this right, you wrote to him. And then you pointed out what Salvatori was all about, and some of these incredible mantric sayings in there, and that what Sri Aurobindo had done. And I was so happy about that. And if I remember this right, he wrote back to you, and he said, you're absolutely right. I had just glanced at it, he said, and I didn't quite get it. And then once I really went in, and thanks to your little sort of synopsis and explanation, I really appreciate this is one of the greatest masterpieces ever. So he got it, and so...
And he retracted what he had written.
He retracted what he had written. Isn't that good? Because, you see, I think Salvatori is so important because it's for the future. And if people get initially turned off, and then they tell other people, oh, there's nothing there, it's not nice, especially from somebody like him who is a respected historian.
Yes.
So we didn't want to do that. Yeah, it's always good to go back to the person directly, because people will say things that other people said. And this reminds me of what happened regarding Matra Mandir and Satprem.
Oh.
So Satprem, we had those difficult times in Oroville, and Satprem always supported Oroville. And he was very, very, very strong and confident in his support, but there were some people who they said Satprem, told us that Matra Mandir is not so important, and that Matra Mandir is a little bubble, And you people who are building Matra Mandir, you're in your little pious pursuit, which is really not what Oroville is all about. And you think that, okay, you build this building and the consciousness will change. But that's a total illusion. You have to change your consciousness. No building can do that for you. So they were very heavy on this thing, and it was quite depressing because it was hard work. And it didn't look like, Matra Mandir could have failed. I mean, it could have stopped the construction. It never stopped, but it could have. And especially when you had those kind of rumors in the community. So I was I was unhappy about that. And I didn't really believe that Satprem would say something like that. So, very fortunately, I got a chance to be with him because Bhaga and Vaya were developing a game around consciousness and the yoga. And it was called Gayatri. And they started working on this game about, at least 40 years ago. Mm. And, the truth is, they're still working on it. They're still revising it, still doing it. I just saw Bhaga recently. She said, yes, Vaya has now moved into the center of Oroville, and Bhaga has come up from the beach. And she said, and we're back to work on it. And so I hope that game, but at that time, they had already the whole thing built, and Vaya, being a very wonderful graphic designer, had made this beautiful board that was like a mantric, yantric symbol, with gold paint and silver, and beautiful thing. It was a board game. So you played, 4 people played. It wasn't really a competitive game, but you were trying to transform yourself. And that was the object of the game. So they wanted to bring it to Satprem and get his view on it. Was this thing, was this game viable, and what did he think of it? So they were able to arrange, and we went to Nandanam Garden.
So you went with them?
I went with them. Mm. And so we sat around the table there with Satprem, and Sujata was there also. And we played the game. And Bhaga observed. And she was, talking to Satprem and to us about, different things. Well, what about this? What about that? And so we were playing the game. And it was wonderful. And Satprem enjoyed it very much. And he thought it was a great idea. And he supported them fully. But what happened, of course, because I was there, I took the opportunity to ask him about Matra Mandir. And so I said to him, there are some people in Oroville who have said that you said that this Matra Mandir is really not that important, and that it's a religious bubble, and we should concentrate on the inner transformation, and this building is not that important. And then he looked at me, quite startled, and he actually took his hand and he put it on my arm, and he said, oh, no. He said the mother herself wanted the Matra Mandir, and she understood how important it was, not only for the Orovillians, but for the world. And he said, your work there is absolutely essential, and don't you at all, think that I would say something like that. He said, people say all kinds of things about what I said or didn't say. But he said, don't listen to any of that. And he said, I can assure you, the mother wants you at Matra Mandir building that, and she wants that Matra Mandir finished as soon as you can. And don't worry about the critics, And he when he said that, he transmitted like an energy to me. I felt so empowered by that.
Oh, yes.
And then I went back and told the people, and it really helped us. It really helped us because we got that extra support, So because the early years, there were discouraging moments, as you know.
Yes.
We had many things happening that.
In addition to the attempted takeover.
Yes, all of that. That
yes.
was That trauma still, it continues to be healed.
It did bring in the government, though.
It did bring in the government, but you see, the government did a thing that no government would ever do. Namely, say, part of our territory belongs to humanity. And it brought in the government with that foundation that is legally set up, that the members are in charge of the policy of Oroville. Not any of those boards they set up. So the Residents' Assembly, which is a legal thing, and when you become a member of Oroville, you're a legal member of that, and you have the vote, you have a vote, you have a right to determine the policy together with everybody else. And nobody can overthrow that. So that's very strong. But still people fall back on these patriarchal models, and it's in their heads, I think.
Yes.
And they will think, well, the governing board is coming. So the governing board, but I have found, like the governing board, it's really good that they come, because the Orovillians, then they have to present a report to them. So they get their act together. And what the governing board just did, just this last month, they had said in their prior meeting, well, there are reports that the economy of Oroville is not doing well. Next meeting, we want to report on what's happening. So I think that's good. I think that's very good. And then, so all this year, there were these committees meeting and things, and they've come up, and we've got some new ideas about the economy and things that are happening, which is really important. So they act to stimulate. So I don't really feel bad about that government thing. I think it was a grace, because at that time it was the very means by which the lands of Oroville, the assets of Oroville, could be secured. Because the people that had the property deeds under the Constitution, they could do whatever they wanted. There was no way around that. You had to have a new law. Essentially, the Oroville Emergency Provisions Act of 1980, later restructured a bit in 1987, but that one set up this public foundation so that it made everything transparent, and it actually fulfilled the ideal of Oroville in the sense of human unity. Everybody in Oroville is equal, and there are no foreigners in Oroville. The land, the earth itself, and the assets of Oroville are held in trust for the earth, for humanity. So Matra Mandir and everything belongs to everybody on this planet, legally. It's just that psychologically and consciously, that awareness has not come.
Well, this has really been helpful. I'm sure many people will be grateful for your clarification.
No, it's really important, you see, because some people, of course, governments are problematic, and they think the politics will change, and then, they will. But we have been blessed all the way along, because we had, of course, we had first Indira Gandhi and Rajiv Gandhi and these people who supported Oroville very much. And now, the Prime Minister Modi came for the Oroville's 50th birthday.
Yes.
His speech is, I don't think he necessarily may not have written it, but he said all the right things. It's very well said, and it's a historical record now of what he said. And no future Prime Minister, can go back and say, things.
Because counter it.
Yeah, he can't counterattack it.
I think that what I've heard is that there's a visa problem.
Well, the visa thing is a different department. The visa is in India you have your whole foreigners department, and you have a lot of security issues there. They're worried about all sorts of things, and Oroville is such a unique kind of project. It doesn't fit into their box. So they like for tourist visas and different things, they have to give these general guidelines, but they have made exception for Oroville. They grant this entry visa, sometimes called the X visa. They grant that, and they give it to you for 5 years. First, they give it to you for 1 year, then 2 years, 3, and 4th year. After the 4th year, you have to go back to your country and get the 5 year there. But then once you got that, like I did. I have that. So I can renew that 5-year visa in Oroville, in Pondicherry, in the office, uh, every 5 years. I don't have to go
I
out,
see.
and that's the law now. Of course, any of these things can change anytime, but it's very favorable to Oroville.
Mm.
So, yeah, people have these problems, but some of the problems come about. For example, I know one case, the guy let his visa expire, and then he left. So then when he wanted to get a new visa, they said, well, you stayed in India on an expired visa. So, there are things, and then other things you have no idea why certain people get held up sometimes. But I don't think it has anything to do with the fact so much about Oroville. It has just to do with fact with that whole general situation in the world where they're worried about. Now they've put on their forms, when you're coming, if you get even a tourist visa, they've written, do you know anybody in Pakistan? Have you visited Pakistan? They put that as a question. And of course, if you say yes, you don't get your visa. They're doing things like that. So this is the world.
It's in an evolutionary phase,
Yeah,
there's no
exactly.
doubt. Yeah.
That whole visa thing has to go, of course,
Yeah.
everywhere. And the unfortunate people that have visas from countries, that are, having trouble with other countries, they can barely travel. It's very, very unfair.
Yes.
Totally unfair. Totally unfair. Yeah, that's part of the Oroville dream, huh? We get to the world citizens. Human unity.
Well, there are many people on a list that I've put together for you. Of course, Mary Helen is number one for me, always has been.
Mary Helen, so wonderful. Yes, we had those very good years in the nursery with Mary Helen, and of course Shally was with her.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you don't realize. I didn't realize how close that connection was until when she passed away, and of course I didn't know. She came to me in a dream, and
Really?
yeah, it was just like the day or so after, and of course I never dreamed about Mary Helen, and there she was, and she came, she gave me a hug, she was saying goodbye, and it was so clear and so beautiful, and I could feel the love, and that it just connected me back all the way to those good times we had. We had good times, and yeah, it's amazing, these people who were there. I even think of Orchid Allen.
Oh, yes.
Alan in the
Yes.
nursery, every morning, 5 a.m. playing his classical guitar
Yeah.
with the same song,
Yeah.
the same piece, and his connection to the orchids, and how he brought those orchids to he really was connected to them, and they flourished.
No one has ever done it like he
No,
did.
no, they couldn't, because he had that, well, some people would say almost fanatic attachment to them, and the orchids came first, Nobody, he would not spare himself or anyone else to make sure the orchids got their misting at the right time,
Oh, yes.
and then all that delicate work of raising the little ones,
Yeah.
and it was.
I have an interesting story about Sundamurti and Alan.
Yes.
Alan took a shower and left his $10,000 Rolex outside the shower.
Oh my God.
Came back out and he was frantic. And Sundamurti said, I know the tire tracks of this cycle. And he followed that cycle all the way into Pondi and found the guy at his house and got the watch back and gave it to Alan.
Wow. That is I never knew that story. Yeah. I never even knew he had a $10,000 Rolex. Yeah. Yeah, we all those stories.
And you know how he died? It's very interesting. He was in Colorado with Sky.
Yes, I knew that.
And she said, Alan, I'm going back to Oroville.
Huh.
And I think it was too much for him.
Really?
Because she mothered him.
Of course. Absolutely.
And she doesn't hear from him for a number of days, and so she goes to his house, and there he's lying on the cot dead.
Yeah.
And so he just left quietly.
Yeah. Yeah. That yeah, he was because Sky was there. With her daughter Sonora and Lenora,
Right.
those little sweeties.
Right.
We had so much fun with them because Sonora had a little lisp, as a child. She doesn't anymore, and she couldn't say aspiration, and she would say acerbation. And so we would always ask her, about aspiration, because we used to like to hear her say acerbation. And we had a lot of fun in those days. And you remember Judith was there too.
Yes.
This Judith with her daughter, whose name was Midori, had a Japanese name.
Yes.
And this Midori was, I have no idea where she is today, but I think she's maybe a CEO somewhere. She was so smart and so clever and so organized. And she was 6 years old or something, 6 or 7. And she took care of her mother. Because Judy would say, oh yeah, what are we supposed to do today? Or, what time is it? And Midori would say, today, mother, we have to go and pick up the laundry. We have to do this and we have to do that. And don't forget to do this. And it was so phenomenal, that little girl. And I'm thinking, what's that little girl going to do with that incredible ability that she had at that age, later in life? So I have no idea. So we don't know. Maybe Midori will show up one day in Oroville.
Yeah. Do you remember Daniel Wilms? I think it was.
Yes, of course.
He told me this incredible story. We met in Thailand, and we stayed at the Nong Nuch Gardens as a guest because they had collected all my plumerias and made a plumeria display. So he told me this story that he went to Vipassana, and he met this guru, this Zen guru. So there was a long, long line, and they all went before the guru, and he said something to each one special. So Danny comes to him, and the guru smiles and he says, "Oh, but you're from a different nest, but welcome." He knew.
Yeah.
He knew.
Now this is the Daniel that taught in Kodi in the school up there at one time, and then he, when the years when you were on your sabbatical, he was taking care of the nursery.
Yes, true. Then he married a Japanese girl.
Yes.
Had a child.
Yes.
He died on my birthday.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, of course, then we had Bill taking over there, Bill and Raina, in the nursery.
Oh, and Bill did such wonderful work on the hibiscus.
Yeah, he was making his own. He was creating new ones.
Yes.
You take the Oroville hibiscus and then you cross it with some other one, and you got these unbelievable things. Yeah, he did that. Yeah. Well, I met him in, he retired from the post office in Oregon. He worked at the post office after he went back to the States. And then he retired from there, and I will go and visit him. I will go and visit him this year, And,
wonderful.
And Raina also, and the 2 children, Beta Mira and Arya. Just today, I saw a picture of that family in the Rose Garden in Portland, the beautiful Rose Garden.
Oh yes, it's a fantastic garden.
Yeah. So, but it's thanks to you that I got this, connection, such a strong connection to the plants, because when you had, been with the mother and she told you the Matraman Deer Gardens had to be the most beautiful in the world, and that people had to be able to go into, for example, the Garden of Bliss and feel the bliss.
And know bliss, she told me. They will know bliss.
And will know bliss.
How would you want to leave?
That's right. Well, you know, the Garden of Bliss now, see, it got a little controversial because some people didn't like, they say it's too bright because there's this white gravel there and there are these bowls. There's a whole series of bowls. So I went there just recently and I'm looking at those bowls. See what they did with the water. They started in existence, consciousness, bliss. So we have the Sat Chit Ananda
Right.
in a row. The idea with the water that I understood, I don't know if they'd written about it sometime, in the Garden of Existence, the water is just rippling. There's a little pool under a big rock. So the water is just rippling, but the reflection goes up on the rock. So you see this little play of light. Then when you get to consciousness, the water's flowing. But it's flowing slowly over this cascade, and it comes down. But when you get to bliss, the water is bubbling up and out. So it's in those bowls. So I'm thinking, bowls of bliss. So then I went the other day and I kind of went down. The Matra Mandir you see here, you see this big bowl and you see this bubble of water coming up and it's flowing, and actually those bowls, the water runs over the side and down into the ground. That's where all that gravity, and it's pumped back up. So I took this photo right across that water, and it looks like the Matra Mandir is on a seacoast.
Oh,
And so then I put this on WhatsApp or somewhere, and these people are writing to me and they're saying, why did you overlap a picture of the ocean next to Matra Mandir? And so I had to tell them, no, this is the Garden of Bliss. And then I started to feel, the bliss is overflowing. Those are waves of bliss, those little waves you see coming out of the bowl. And so, and then immediately I thought of what you said and what the mother told you. You can go in that Garden of Bliss and the bliss is there, and you can feel it in your bones. And of course you have that flower there, that little hibiscus, the one with that bright scarlet center. So it's the cream.
Ananda in the physical.
Exactly, in the physical. So you've got the bliss, not in somewhere, but in the physical.
Yes.
And those flowers are all the way around.
Yes.
They're really, so I'm very happy with that garden. And what's going to happen with the new gardens, we don't know. It's unexpected what will happen. But the progress garden is good. The progress garden, because you get this bath of progress. Progress flowers on both sides of you.
Yes.
But the trees they put in there, I was thinking, why did they put these trees? They put those lagastreamia in, intimacy with the divine.
Right.
So then I'm thinking, well, if you have intimacy with the divine, certainly that's going to help your progress.
Definitely.
So, I mean, I don't know what these garden designers were thinking, but when you go there, I think everybody, based on what they already know, they put it together.
Mm-hmm.
And the intention of the landscaper or the person doing the work may have been something totally different, but does it matter? Maybe everything is used,
I think we'll see a lot more happening in the future.
Well, the nice thing about a garden, of course, is it keeps changing.
Absolutely.
See, and you can change anything easily.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like it's a concrete building. But one thing I was surprised about is this supramental action in the Garden of Consciousness, this Barringtonia. But what's so remarkable about it is it never stops blooming.
I know.
And so how is that possible?
And I think I planted it in the late 70s or the mid 70s. And everybody asks me about it. And it's so beautiful.
But and not only
And
beautiful.
people put the flowers on this little bench.
Yeah. There's a big stone under it.
A stone, yeah.
Yeah.
And they're kind of an offering, I guess you
Yeah.
could say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that flower, you see, it also has an incredible fragrance.
Yeah.
Unbelievable fragrance. And you go there early in the morning, and you see that flower because it has the gold tips. Because all those earlier flowers of wisdom and all those, they all have that little spray,
Mhm.
a lot of those wisdom ones. But then you get the supramental truth somehow level. It feels like, That's what I'm thinking, because those other ones, all the wisdom trees, you know, the puff is small, and but here you this big,
yeah.
big,
Yeah.
and then the multicolors, and then gold at the tips.
Yeah.
See, I mean the pollen. It's just
all those stamens.
yeah. Just
Yeah.
so that's I mean that's your incredible contribution to the gardens. You know, how can we? You know, there's no way to even hardly evaluate or even talk about it. We just have to enjoy it and appreciate it. And we, you know, of course, you and myself probably felt so much that we were slow, you know, all these years, 50 years, you know, look where we are. You know, it could have all been there. And Mother wanted it right there, right in the beginning.
The gardens are as important as the matrimonio,
Exactly.
she said.
But there's a place where she said didn't she say like within 2 years or something? That she gave a date or something.
Don't remember that.
Somewhere she said they should come up, you should do them now or something, but maybe I'm
Yes,
wrong.
she did say something like that.
You start right away or something.
But you know, I wrote to her and I said I can't catch the vision of the gardens. For 37 years I carried that in my heart, that guilt, if you will, that I couldn't catch the vibration. And one day I went to my teacher, Aurobindo, and I told him this. And very strongly he said to me, get rid of the guilt. The gardens are not yet ready to descend. So it's that descent I'm waiting on now.
Okay. Very good.
Whoa.
But they are descending. They're coming.
They are coming.
They're coming.
We started the Garden of
Yeah.
Unexpected. It's going to be very special.
Yeah. And you
And
know.
now the next 4 gardens have been put out for competitive designs.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's happening.
No, it's happening. I mean, I remember when we tried to kind of break the desert syndrome there, because all around Matrimondier was a total desert in those early years.
Oh, yes.
And we brought the Godheads up. And we got the Godhead hibiscus, that beautiful Hawaiian one. And I think that was the only one that was available at that time, or at least I don't remember.
I hadn't yet met the people in Bangalore who gave me all the Hawaiian ones.
Okay. But we put them all the way around the whole banyan tree. We had that whole ring. So we had that kind of force field of that all the way around. But the thing of water, see, because of the harshness of the sun, the wind, see, there was no other trees. There was
No
nothing.
windbreak.
Nothing. And so it was blowing, and the sun on those things, they couldn't take it.
Yeah.
So we had to abandon that. We had to take them away. Didn't quite.
No, in this climate, you have to have windbreaks. And you have to have some shade.
Yeah.
You have to have that play of light and shade.
Yeah.
And the windbreaks in the summer are essential.
Yeah.
It'll come.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, see, already some of the hibiscus are doing quite well. I did notice, though, in the Garden of Existence, they have that psychic power in existence.
In existence,
that pink
yes.
one. They had a hard time. A lot of them died, but then they replaced them because there's a whole ring of them. And they seem to bloom quite profusely.
Yes.
And you get a very good feeling.
I planted the first ones with the ashram group that comes out on Sundays.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we were all together and we planted those. It was a very beautiful experience.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were so lucky, see, to be part of those planting experiments. I mean, when we were there for the planting, and then you come back years later, and you know, they're there.
Yeah.
And there's no going back. Like the palm trees, you know, the royal palms that are there in the garden next to the amphitheater. Those we planted in, I think it was New Year's Day in 1990. And Amrit was looking after the gardens at that time, or at least part of them. and these students from the USA had come, and they said, well, we have to do something. And I thought, now's the chance, maybe we can get some trees up there, you know. And he said, well, I've got these royal palms, you know, we can put these royal palms there. So there were, I think we had about 15 students, and we went there, we planted all those palms, you know, and every time I go there, I look over and see those palms, you know.
And they grew so beautifully, and they were so happy.
Yeah. And they withstood the cyclone. We didn't lose one of them.
Right.
Some of them got kind of damaged on the top, some of the fronds were gone, but they sprouted right back.
Fantastic.
But and I think of those students who were there then, who did it, and there was that guy Bruce and Barbara, that couple who started the GEO, the Gaia Educational Outreach, and they brought those students, you know, Bruce Cantner. And then that led to the Living Roots students and to Daniel Greenberg and all those programs. Yes. They all started from that.
Ah.
They were all offshoots of that. And now and then Living Roots collapsed, unfortunately. It was going worldwide. But now Daniel has come back, and he's working on some new programs to bring students and
Wonderful.
bring them to the International House. So all those seeds that were planted, they keep